Hey, hey, hey. All right, so we're here. My favorite is bacteria. And so you know that bacteria are prokaryotes, and that means right above prokaryotes, no organelles. So this whole video is about bacteria, and that's just showing you the size in comparison to ours. It's the oldest organisms, you know, the 3.6 billion years ago, we just finished evolution. And most adaptive organisms on the planet. Okay, so most bacteria are harmless. Yeah, actually 99% of bacteria aren't even bad for you. They're actually good for you. But some famous bacteria like the plague, that's bad for you. TB, or what we would call tuberculosis, is a bacterial infection of the lungs. Cholera, botulism, that causes botulism. And anthrax. So those are just some popular pathogens right out beside that pathogens. Those are bacteria that do cause disease, but most of them are harmless, and actually they're necessary for us to live, like the nitrogen cycle. And so bacteria drive the nitrogen cycle. They decompose organisms so that plants can have nitrogen for their DNA, and you know that nitrogen is in DNA. Okay, so there's two main domains of bacteria. So bacteria, there's either eubacteria or archaeobacteria. And so if you're looking at this picture, you got the eukaryotes. That's us. Okay, but then there's archaeobacteria, and then there's eubacteria, which would be true bacteria. And so there's regular bacteria, and then the archaeobacteria is the weird, extreme, old bacteria. So it says common bacteria, and then archaea are extremophils. They're the weird ones, right? And I'm in the word weird. The genetic difference is located in their RNA. So the RNA, or the ribosomes, they're different. And that's how we separated them out. They said these are so weird, we're not even going to call them regular bacteria, we're going to call them archaeobacteria. Okay, so bacterial structure, well, they're unicellular, which means one cell makes up the bacteria. And their structure, I don't see where it says it, but let's, oh, there it does, on C. They have a cell wall of peptidoglycan. And so, oh, I see it on down. Sorry, I kind of got ahead of myself there. But they have a cell wall. Remember, animals don't have a cell wall, but bacteria do. And so their cell wall is shaped one of three ways. They're cocci, so you can see these are round. So coccus is round. Bacillus is rod. Or they're like a curly fry from Arby's, helical. And so those are the prettiest ones. So like what causes strep throat, it is round. E. coli, that's rod. And then spherical, like the helical one or the spiral one, the STD syphilis is spiral. So that's just three examples of different shapes. Prokaryotes, the eubacteria ones, have a cell wall, and that helps with protection. So there's a picture of the cell wall. Helps for protection, prevents too much water, helps it from bursting. And the bacteria, they go through this staining procedure. And if it has a really thick cell wall, it stains purple. And we call that gram-positive. So gram-positive stain purple. Or your notes say blue, I'm sorry. But it's really purple or blue. Gram-negative stain red or pink. So if you have a thick cell wall, yeah, it says it, thick cell wall, they are gram-positive. Gram-negative is a thin cell wall. Some bacteria have, just like the viruses did yesterday, they have a capsule. And that capsule helps it stick to you. So cavities are caused by bacteria. And so the bacteria that causes cavities sticks to your teeth. And that is how it stays there. It has a capsule. And then it is able to, it eats the sugar on your teeth, and it actually releases an acid, and that's what causes cavities. Okay, so some bacteria have flagella, like a sperm cell, but bacteria, or cilia. This one actually, you can see the little cilia too, for movement. So there's a flagella right there labeled, and the cilia are small little hair-like structures, kind of like the pill eye that you see. And then some bacteria move by sliming, so they just kind of wiggle, kind of like an inchworm. But all bacteria move towards a stimuli, so they may move towards the light or towards the water or towards the smell or towards the sugar. But response to a stimuli, if it moves towards it, it's a positive stimuli. If it moves away from it, it's a negative stimuli. Like me, I'm going to move towards the ice cream, and I'm going to move away from the spider, so that'd be negative. Bacteria's DNA, the genome, or DNA, so DNA is genome, right, is much smaller than ours, 1,000, 1,000 smaller. It consists of, circle the word circular. We have linear DNA, but bacteria, you can see the DNA right in the middle. They have circular DNA. So where we make an X chromosome, they make a circle chromosome. And then we have histones, and so do archaeobacteria, which is really weird. So our DNA is similar to archaeobacteria, but not eubacteria, which is opposite of what you would think. So that's kind of evidence for common ancestry. Prokaryotes have little bitty pieces of DNA plasmid. So if you look at this picture, take a second and look here. Okay, so this right here that I'm highlighting in green, that is the DNA. That's the circular DNA. It makes a circle. But this right here is what we call a plasmid. It's another piece of DNA that's circular, and it is exchangeable. So write in exchangeable. It says exchanging. Oh, well. Okay, bacteria divide by, it's just like mitosis minus the organelles. It's easy. Binary fission. So it's just like mitosis, but there's no mitochondria and all that. So bacterial division is called binary fission. Okay, and then this last part of part 1 just tells us some ways we really need bacteria. We need bacteria to be saprobes, or that's like a decomposer. It says decomposer too. They move the nutrients, the phosphorus and nitrogen around for us. They also, these are just roles they play. They're parasites, so they may live inside organisms and use them. They do nitrogen. Remember, if you look down here, and I'm not going to get into the nitrogen cycle because we already did in another unit, but if you look right here, the bacteria are making the nitrogen cycle, right? Bacteria are cycling the nitrogen. And so some bacteria do photosynthesis, but now they don't have a chloroplast, they just do photosynthesis. They do photosynthesis in their cytoplasm. Some are chemiosynthesis, means they make, it says using hydrogen sulfide for energy instead of sunlight. They actually make sugars, but from chemicals. And then heterotrophs, that's us. That's the bacteria that causes strep throat feeding on your throat. We are heterotrophs through and through. All right, go ahead and get out part 2. And the first part of part 2, okay, it tells you, it's talking about the oxygen demand. So the O2 demand right here. If you are obligated to oxygen, that means you got to have it. You need it. You are obligated. Okay, and then let's do obligate anaerobes next. Hate it. They hate oxygen. The organism that causes tetanus, and we'll talk a little bit about tetanus tomorrow in class. The organism that causes tetanus is an obligate anaerobe. It hates it. So write in tetanus below obligate anaerobe. And then the facultative, they can do both. They really would prefer oxygen, but they can function without it. And that would be the way to go if you could pick. Like to have oxygen, but don't necessarily need it. Okay, so here's a funny one. Methogens. Okay, so they produce it's a bacteria that produces methane gas, or CH4, and they're in cowpoots. That's why this is on there. So this term used with archaea or extremophils. Remember, that's the weird ones, the weird bacteria. These are mainly associated with animals that eat grass, ruminants, and they spit their food up and swallow it, and spit their food up and swallow it. So like a swamp, it says. Waste disposal and trash dumps also produce methane. You have them too, living in your large intestines. These are organisms that cause us to release gas. Halophiles, these are salt lovers. You know this from the game. HALO means salt. So a halophile is a bacteria that would feed on salt. Not many bacteria feed on salt, but the ones that do we call halophiles. So there's a halophiles in a salt farm. Isn't that pretty? And then a thermophile is going to be in a hot spring. So something that not many bacteria can live in hot places. So a bacteria that can live in hot places, we call them a thermophile. So they like extreme temperatures, extreme salt, and then, extreme environments like methane. But bacteria really put a big impact on our world. It says ecological impact. This is the good stuff. They recycle the nutrients. They are the decomposers. They are the ones that we already talked about in this video, perform nitrogen fixation. Okay, some bacteria work with mutualistic relationships where both organisms benefit. Example would be the E. coli in your intestines. It helps you break down different medications, break down different food so that you can digest. E. coli actually helps you in digestion. You have tons and tons of bacteria in your digestive system. Let's look at that. That really helps you. Commensalism would be where one benefits and the other one isn't affected. So the bacteria is living, but it's okay. And then parasite is where the bacteria is hurting you. So like the one that's causing the cavities, that's a parasite. It's hurting you. And then, a bacteria that is a pathogen is one that causes a disease. So, example, write in for me, strep throat, food poisoning is normally bacterial. Food poisoning. Okay, so these prokaryotes account for more than half of the non-genetic diseases in humans. So, of all the sicknesses, half of them are bacterial, and that's why I like them so good. Okay, opportunistic means it wouldn't normally cause a disease, but in this case, it did. And so this is, look at the word, I wrote it here for you. They take the opportunity. An example would be if you're already sick and you get sick from a bacterial infection. So like if someone has cancer and they get sick from a bacterial infection that wouldn't normally make someone else sick. So an opportunistic becomes a problem when the body is busy fighting something else. An exotoxin is a bacteria that releases a toxin. Exo, it releases. And then an endotoxin is a bacteria that has a toxin inside it. So when the bacteria dies, it's released. And these are normally gram-negative. Antibiotics, these are substances like penicillin that kill the bacteria. So anytime you get an antibiotic, it's to kill a bacteria because antibiotics are to kill bacteria. And then that last picture we looked at, right here, bioremediation tanks. That's where they use bacteria to actually clean the environment. So in this picture, they're bioremediation tanks of sewage water at water treatment plants. So they're actually cleaning the water with the bacteria. And so most of the time, bacteria is actually your friend. I hope this was helpful.